Good morning, everybody. It's Dr. Karen. So this morning, hold on, I had to make sure my video was on. I started talking and I wasn't even sure if it was on. All right, let's start this again. All right, so it is Tuesday morning. We are about to get started on this live session where I am going to talk about ethical marketing for people who are in the service delivery industry. So anybody who is providing some type of a service for someone else where they are taking on clients and have people in their care. So obviously a lot of people in this group are SLPs. And so a lot of us are coming from the mindset of wanting to help people and wanting to be of service to people and really just wanting to make things better for them. And so sometimes when we have to ask for money or when we have to sell ourselves to them and get their attention, which again is part of marketing, sometimes it can feel kind of icky and unethical. Part of it is, number one, because a lot of us are uncomfortable asking for money because we feel like we are somehow hurting the person that we are serving. And then number two, we feel like we're over-promising or being kind of hypey and again, unethical in the way that we have to sell ourselves in order to be able to get people to enroll in our services, products, purchase things from us, or whatever that may be. So number one, if you're feeling like that and if you're interested in, if you're working full-time right now, as an SLP, as a teacher, as some other kind of therapist, and you're thinking about starting something on the side, but the thought of having to sell something and market yourself feels really icky, I want to let you know that you're definitely not alone. That is probably one of the most common topics that comes up in a lot of the business groups that I'm in. And I would say it's especially prevalent in any type of helping people profession, which honestly, nobody really starts a business if they don't want to help people. But then when it comes to the whole talk about money, a lot of us are really uncomfortable. It's become kind of taboo. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about 4 ways that people who run successful businesses are thinking about money differently than a lot of people who are maybe continuing to work in jobs where they don't feel valued, or who maybe have started businesses, but maybe they're not succeeding as much, or as much as people who have these different mindset shifts. So I'm going to go through all 4 of them today and just talk a little bit about some specific examples and cases of things that kind of illustrate these points. So the first shift is that people who are running businesses successfully value money. They don't think that money is the root of all evil, and they don't come with it from the mindset of, I'm a bad person if I'm asking for money or if I'm making a lot of money. So, and I'm actually in some, I don't want to go down the whole path of talking about religion and things like that, but there are definitely some different mindsets about, like, you need to give away all that you earn. It's, you're not supposed to, have material possessions, or just, again, that money is evil and we're not supposed to worship money. But worshiping money and being obsessed with it and valuing it and understanding what it is are 2 totally different things. So, I mean, people who worship money, who are obsessed with money, are the people that will, like steal, like blatantly steal, or blatantly try to rip someone off, or people who are cheap, or people who maybe are, again, charging a lot for their services, but treating their employees really poorly because they don't want to give them benefits or whatever, because they want to save money here or there. That's a lot different from somebody who values money, who understands that all it is just a way of really transferring energy or some type of exchange from one person to another. So, for example, if you are, a lot of times when people start to do pretty well in their business, they are able to hire employees. What that allows them to do is provide a job for those people who are able to make a living because of the money that those people are making. None of that would be possible if they weren't making enough money in their business. And then also there are certain types of overheads, of certain costs of doing business. For example, with my courses that I'm running, there are certain costs to hosting my courses and certain software that I have to have. And I know that if I'm not charging for my services, that I will not be able to continue to afford to provide them, and then I won't be helping anyone. So I value money in the sense that it enables me to make enough that I don't have I'm no longer working as an SLP. I can devote 100% of my time to providing these services for people, and I can serve them at a higher level because I'm making enough that I'm able to do that. So I value money in that sense, that it enables me to make enough that I can keep providing these services. Again, if I wasn't, and if I didn't understand that and hadn't tested that out and taken that into account with how much my tuition is for my programs, then I wouldn't be able to offer the services that I am. So the first shift is that they value money. They understand that it's just really kind of an exchange of energy, or just a transaction that allows them to provide the service that they are providing. And it allows them to stay in business, because if they are stressed about money, that's going to have a negative impact on how they show up for the clients that they serve. So the second thing is that in addition to just valuing money, not being obsessed with it, but valuing it, they also don't see selling as taking from someone. They see selling as a form of service. So throughout the process of, and if you even use, for example, a language evaluation as part of your sales process, and you can think about, any type of process that you might have to go through, even when you make some type of a purchase, or if you decide to enroll in a certain program or certain services from someone, the whole sales process and the process of getting people's attention and then taking them through the necessary steps in order to get them to enroll in working with you is actually one of the highest ways that you can serve someone. Because number one, the first step is, what if they have this big problem? If you don't have a marketing message that gets people's attention and that is compelling, if you're kind of, beating around the bush and not really putting it out there, then you're not going to get their attention. They're not even going to know you exist. And so they're not even going to think to come and see you. And so again, yes, there are certain times, especially if you're in a private practice or something like that, where the doctor might make a referral, but sometimes doctors might have multiple places that they refer to, or maybe give people a list of things. And maybe people might go back and look at your website and look at your resources. If you don't have a compelling message on your website, even if the doctor maybe recommended you, some of the time people might not want to go work with you, or maybe the doctor refers to you directly and the message isn't compelling, so they decide to go do research on their own and go with somebody else. So if you don't have that message, that's the first part of serving them, is to just get their attention and get them to take that first step of working with you. For me, for the way that I do it with a business online that is continuing education, I have a blog that provides free information for people, and I have different resources that you can sign up for that will put you on my mailing list, that will send you emails for additional resources, additional trainings that, again, I have to, whatever the email is, whatever the blog post is, or whatever part of my website you're on, there's got to be a compelling message for you to think, oh, I'm going to go read this, or I'm going to go click on this and sign up for this. So there's got to be that compelling message, or they're not even going to know about you. So that's the first part. And then, so really marketing is more of the like getting people's attention and getting them to understand what you're about. But then the selling part is getting them to figure out that they want to work with you. So we actually do this as therapists without even realizing it. And so that's what some of the shifts that some of the people who are running businesses have made, is that they see that process, whether they are in a private practice or whether they're in a business online, selling apps, courses, products, whatever, they see that step as a form of service, because part of serving them is diagnosing the problem, or in some way communicating to them that you understand their problem, and then putting the right solution in front of them. And yes, that does involve a transaction, but the reason that you're able to provide that solution is because you are because you're charging for those services. So for example, with a language evaluation, maybe, again, even in the school systems, you do this, even though it's a little bit, the process is a little bit different, but somebody comes to you, you get that referral for your screening, for the evaluation, you go through the evaluation, and then you talk to the parent or the caregiver about what the results are. And then you go through, and what you're essentially doing during that process is selling them on why they need therapy. And the reason that you're doing that is because you want to help them, because you know that if they enroll in that service with you, you're going to be serving them. So that whole process before they even decide, yes, I want to work with you, is really just giving them the information they need, diagnosing their problem, showing them that you understand their issue, and then explaining to them why the solution that you have is going to solve their problem. That's what you're doing when you're doing an evaluation, and that's also what you're doing when you're selling someone a product or service. So for therapy, I mean, think about that. A lot of times, and this happens in the school systems, it probably doesn't happen quite as often if you are in a private practice, because a lot of times if you've done the evaluation, they already have been paid for it, but they might have gotten multiple opinions from somewhere. So that still might be the case, but a lot of times we evaluate, and then the caregiver or the parent, whoever, or maybe even the person themselves, if they're the one making the decisions, they might not be 100% sold on working with you. But the thing is that you believe that they will be better served by actually working with you. So that's why convincing them and helping them go through the process of understanding why your service is what they need, or why your product is what they need, is only going to help them. So we see that as a form of service delivery. The way that it happens for me with my programs and services, I will have some stuff that's more marketing, blog posts, things like that will again get the attention. And then the next part of the process is that there might be some additional training. Usually it's free, but during that training, what I'm doing is explaining the problem so that you know it's relevant to you, and so that you know that I understand the problem. And then I am giving you evidence to support the solution that I am proposing. So for my courses on language therapy, I talk about the components that you need to address in order to address comprehension issues at the root, because I know that people coming in are going to have a lot of different options. They're going to have a lot of different materials and things like that, a lot of different philosophies about how to address it. And so I've got to show them the evidence of why the things that I'm going to teach them are going to be the best way for them. And during that process, I am serving them, even if they don't sign up, because now they at least know. So I'm not necessarily actually, providing them the how yet, but I am providing them the what, so that they understand that, again, I'm diagnosing the issue that they have, and I'm explaining what the solution is, so that they can then make that decision as to whether or not they want to learn more. And so again, same process when you're doing an evaluation for therapy. You're diagnosing the problem, you're explaining what the solution is going to look like, and then you're giving them that option to enroll with you so that you can help them. So the thing is that what makes it ethical is when you are selling them something that you know works and that you know that they actually need. Obviously, if it's some snake oil or something like that, then of course that's unethical. But if you are selling a product or service that you know is going to help them, there's nothing unethical about it, even if you are having to charge for your service. So that's number two. So number one was that one of the mindset shifts is that people who are successfully selling products and services and running businesses profitably they value money. They understand that it's necessary in order for them to be doing what they're doing and to be providing a service. Number two, they understand that selling is serving. And even if people may or may not enroll with them, just that process of going through and offering them the chance to work with you, at least they understand that is one of the highest ways that you can serve people. And so then let's get to number three, just the idea of, okay, so I've got these people that I want to serve, but they're telling me that, this product over here is too expensive, or maybe you've tried to offer something before and people have said it's too expensive, or, I can't afford it, or whatever that may be. And are there situations when people truly can't afford it? Yeah. One example was I had a dissertation program, a very high-end dissertation coaching program. And I would, again, get on a call with somebody that was basically like an evaluation. I would listen to their problem to figure out if I could actually help them. And then once we figured it out, I would say, okay, this is what I think you need. And if it was a good fit for the program that I offered, I would tell them about it. And there was one particular situation where a woman was based on where she was in the process, she was a very good fit. Based on where she was struggling, I was a very good person to help her. But she lived in Mumbai, India, and the cost of living and salaries in the different economies was so different that there was no way that she could pay that amount in US dollars for my program, because the amount that my program cost was like what her year's salary was. And so because of that huge discrepancy, there was no way. In that situation, it really was something where she couldn't afford it. However, the majority of the time, especially if you are providing services within a similar economy to yours or the same economy that you're in, typically all that is an objection. Usually what that means is a couple things. Number one, it could just mean that person just really isn't committed to finding a solution right now. Or number two, it could just mean that your process of marketing and selling just maybe wasn't compelling to them for whatever reason. And number three, it could be that it might just be totally irrelevant, which kind of goes with number one. So people who are able to successfully sell products and services understand that when people say it's too expensive, all it is an objection. It's not necessarily a fact. So that means that you might be able to sell things for way more than you would think. Just because some people say it's expensive doesn't mean that it necessarily is. Because there's usually, for everybody who says it's expensive, there might be other people who would be willing to invest because they are committed, they are resourceful, and they do see the value. And they might say, yeah, it was, it wasn't cheap, but it was worth it. And they were happy to invest in it for the value that they got out of it, because they are seeing more of the long-term benefit, and they're seeing the missed opportunity cost of how much time am I going to be wasting? What headaches am I going to have? How is my life going to continue to be difficult if I don't invest in this? So they see it as more of an investment rather than a cost. And the thing is that I have had a number of different programs. I've had programs that were, well, let me say products. Let me think. Yeah, I've gone all the way down to like a $50 course, all the way up to a $5,000 course. And I've gotten the exact same objections about price at $50 than I did at $5,000. So no matter how much you lower your prices, you are still going to get people who say it's too expensive. And a lot of times it might just be that it's not that important to them, or again, maybe it could be the marketing message that maybe it's just not as compelling to them for whatever reason. When I say people aren't committed, let me think of an example here. So let me think of a good example here. So I had here's my example. So I am a runner, but currently I'm not training right now. I'm working through some injuries. And in the past, I've wanted to invest in a coach. And there's this one particular coach who he's really well known. He coaches a lot of different elite athletes and things like that. But he actually, you can go on his website and sign up for coaching with him. And it's not cheap, but I value it. And I think it's 100% worth it. But the thing is that right now I am not committed to working on that. So it wouldn't make sense, even though I think it's valuable, I think it's worth it. I do think it's expensive, but I see it as an investment. And it's not something where I think, it wouldn't be worth it. And it's not a good value for what I'm getting. It's just that I am not committed to doing that right now. There might have been other times when somebody might have offered me something. Okay, so here's an example. Somebody offered to show me how to do something, setting up my webinars for my business. Well, I already know how to do that. So that's not something that's a priority for me right now. So the price that they quoted me, I thought, if I didn't know how to do that, then that would be totally valuable and I would totally need to do it, but it's not what I need to work on. So it just doesn't align. And then the second thing is just the whole thing about, people not being resourceful and committed. Just, there's a lot of people that just think things should be free, and they're there's a reason that they have those videos online about the people of Walmart that like everything at a discount. Now, I shop at Walmart for certain things that aren't a priority for me to buy something high end, but then there's other things where I'm willing to invest a lot. But there are certain people that just they're just cheap all around, and maybe they don't believe in investing in themselves, and they kind of run from that scarcity mindset of the world is unfair, and you're just gonna have to deal with those people, and it's not really that big of a deal because there are a lot of other people who aren't like that are willing to invest. So that's number 3. Understanding that people saying it's too expensive is just an objection. It's not a fact. And it doesn't mean that people won't be willing to invest. It just means that it's just kind of a gut default conditioned response that people have. So again, valuing money, understanding that selling is serving, and then understanding that people saying that something is too expensive is usually just an objection, not something that is a legit fact. It's kind of just a story that people have told themselves. And then finally, number 4, this kind of goes with number 2, but they don't see themselves as these sleazy salespeople, but they see themselves as advocates. And this goes along with how you come across in your marketing and how you come across with just how you present yourself and how you see yourself. So if you see selling as icky and sleazy, then it's just that energy that you bring to that is just going to come across. You're going to come across tentative. You're not going to come across as confident. And people like to work with people who are confident. I think it's the AT&T commercials. I don't know if you've seen them. It's some cell phone company. The whole just okay is not okay. And there's this one commercial where there's people sitting in this hospital room and the surgeon comes up and he's like, woohoo, guess who just got reinstated? And then he's like, are you guys nervous? I'm nervous. It's fine. It'll be okay. And then the people are sitting there freaking out because when you go in to get surgery, you don't want your surgeon to be nervous. You want them to be like, it's fine. We got this, and come across confident. You want to know that the people taking care of you know what they're doing and are confident in what they're doing. So if somebody comes across as really nervous, you're not going to want to work with them. And the same thing goes with offering a service to somebody. So the whole thing, how you see it in your head, is going to impact how you come across. Even if maybe you are a little bit nervous, if you can shift your mindset to not thinking that selling is icky and sleazy and like you're trying to scam people and rip them off like a used car salesman, but if you think of yourself instead as an advocate for them, as by enrolling them or getting them to do whatever it is that you're offering to them, that you are actually advocating for their best needs. Think about all the times that there's all these encroachment debates going on, and a lot of it is that the people who, again, if you can, maybe somebody over here saying you need this therapy and you strongly feel that those practices are unethical and taking them out of therapy is something that's not ethical, well then by convincing them to continue therapy is actually one of the most ethical things you can do. And then the other thing is, when you're in the process of going through, again, with that evaluation, think about what would happen if somebody came in and they really, really needed therapy, but you didn't tell them what was wrong and you didn't give them an accurate diagnosis of the problem. Think about what a disservice you'd be doing for them. And so it's not just when we do therapy evaluations, it's if you are a continuing education provider and you're mentoring other SLPs and you've been where they've been before, and this is whatever population, if you can clearly see the problem and it's there, by pointing that problem out and offering a solution to them, you are advocating for them. So instead of thinking yucky salesman, you want to think of yourself as an advocate. It's kind of like when people do interventions with people where it's like, again, that person might be in denial about the problem, and you might have to bring them down to reality and say, look at the evidence here. Look at what's going on, and repeat that back to them and show them what's happening. And what happens is that you're a lot of times people are sort of sugarcoating things and saying, oh, it's not that bad. This happens with evaluations. I use language skills all the time where people are like, it's not that bad that he's not talking and he's 4 or whatever, where it's like, come on, people, it isn't normal. Sometimes you have to be the one to say, hey, there's a problem here. And by pointing that out to them, by ripping the Band-Aid off, and yes, it sucks because a lot of times that does mean you've kind of dug into the pain a little bit. And that's a lot of times what you're doing when you're in sales and marketing, you're digging into the pain, but it's only because you want to advocate for them and make them aware of reality rather than sugarcoating. If you kind of just brush over it and say, it's fine, all that's going to do is temporarily relieve that feeling of pain and discomfort long enough for them to not do anything. And that's not serving them. So it's your job to get them off the fence and help them to make a decision. The thing is when you do that, when you dig in, some people are going to get pissed off and they're going to go the other way. But then the other people are going to say, you know what, you're right. So the thing is that you don't want them to stay on the fence and be vanilla and not compelling. You want them to go either direction. You want to get them to make a decision because that way they're going to make the decision, no, I don't want to work with you, or yes, I am. But the thing is that people can't get over to this side, to the working with you side, if you don't dig up some emotions associated with whatever they're struggling with. So that is actually why digging into that and seeing yourself as an advocate is going to help you be more confident and actually come across more authentic. If you think of yourself like that as somebody who's serving, then when you have to do those hard things and have that conversation, it's a lot easier to come across as somebody who is telling someone something because they care enough to be the one to tell the truth, rather than being somebody who's just doing it to be nasty, because sometimes people perceive that that's what they're doing, but really that's not the case. Really all that you're doing is actually just helping them and helping them to see the reality of the situation so that they are motivated to do something about it. So that wraps up our 4 things. We've got, again, the first shift is valuing money. The second shift is seeing selling as serving. The third shift is understanding that people saying it's expensive is just an objection. It's not necessarily true. And number 4, seeing yourself not as a yucky salesman, but as an advocate for your clients and your potential clients. So with all that being said, we're about to wrap this up. Thank you so much for everybody who chimed in or who's watching this video later. If you've got any questions or comments, I'd love if you pop them in the comments below the video.